The Aaron Rodgers trade is now official, and with that in mind, let's project the first 15 picks of the NFL draft. Well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm WA2K99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. If you're brand new, welcome aboard. Please like and subscribe. If you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate your support. So, I got to make a little confession. I'm going to start out with admitting something to all of you. I actually had it planned tonight, Monday night, to do a draft video. I was really going to project the Jets draft picks. I had a whole thing in mind here with what I was going to do, and I even had an Aaron Rodgers trade proposal in mind. And I'm going to share what that trade proposal was with you in just a moment. And then it's like 2, 3 o'clock. I've got things pretty much ready to go, just waiting to get out of work so I could go home and record. And about 4:30 or so is when the news breaks that the trade is official. That the Jets and Packers, after weeks and weeks and weeks of haggling, have finally agreed on terms, and Aaron Rodgers is on his way to the New York Jets. I still can't believe that I'm saying it, but it is real. So the trade that went through was the Jets getting Aaron Rodgers, the number 15 pick, and the number 170 pick. And the Packers get 13, 42, 207, and a 2024 second-round pick that becomes a 1 if he plays 65% of the plays this year. So this was my proposal. I'm just going to share it with you really quick. I had the pick swap. I had 13 and 15 getting swapped. I had the Packers getting 42, but I did have the Jets getting 78 back. Okay, so I didn't have the 2 later picks. I have the Jets getting a third-round pick from Green Bay, along with Aaron Rodgers. But then what I had in mind was in 2024, Green Bay would get a third-round pick minimum, regardless of whether Rodgers played or not. That would become a second-round pick if he played in 2024, and a first-round pick if the Jets made the AFC Championship game. So I had 13, 42, and a conditional 2024 third that could easily have become a 2 or maybe a 1. And the Jets getting 15, 78, and Aaron Rodgers. So in a way, it wasn't all that far off. I mean, the top part of the deal was certainly on. But yeah, I was hoping the Jets would get a draft pick in the back end of day 2. It didn't quite work out that way. So now the Jets are down to only 5 picks in this draft. They've got numbers 15, 43, 112, 143, and 170. So that's a first, a second, a fourth, a fifth, and a 6th round pick. Now here's what we're going to do. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part video. What I want to do in this video is just focus on the first round, particularly the first 15 picks, since the Jets are picking at 15. And then I've already done a couple of different mock drafts. And in my second video, I'm going to tell you who I would target with those remaining 4 picks that I think is realistic. And also, I've got an undrafted free agent in mind that I haven't heard anybody talking about. But this is going to become like my guy. You know, last year, I was very much into Bam Knight. I never knew he would become a Jet, but I was very much on the Bam Knight bandwagon. I got another guy in mind. So let's see what happens this time around. So let's talk day 1 of the NFL draft. Now, I don't think there's too much doubt that the New York Jets are going to target offensive tackle. Now, going down from 13 to 15 might make that selection a little bit more challenging because the team at number 14 is the New England Patriots, and probably one of their, I would say, 2 biggest needs is probably offensive tackle along with wide receiver. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through all 14 of the first picks. I'm going to project whether they have a realistic chance of drafting an offensive tackle. I'm going to rate them as either likely, possible, or no chance. Okay? So we're going to do that with all 14 of the picks, and I'm also going to project who I think is going to get drafted by each one of those teams. Now, I'm not going to factor in trades. I can see a situation where one of these teams trades up for a quarterback, and I'll let you know who I think that is. But for right now, we're just going to project them 1 through 15, and I'm going to talk about who I think will go and ultimately who the Jets will take with that number 15 overall pick. So let's start the draft. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock. So first of all, as far as offensive tackle goes, No chance. There is absolutely no chance Carolina takes a tackle with this first pick. It will be a quarterback, and pretty much everybody and their brother are projecting it to be Bryce Young. Now, not everybody agrees Bryce Young will be the best quarterback coming out of this class, but that is who Carolina seems to be infatuated with. So my first pick is projected to be Bryce Young to the Carolina Panthers. And now for the number 2 pick, the Houston Texans are on the clock. I've heard a few different people talk about the possibility of a tackle to Houston or an offensive lineman in general to Houston. To me, you have to go quarterback. I mean, when Davis Mills is your top quarterback, you need to upgrade. And with DeMeco Ryans, you have an exciting new head coach who has a chance to really reinvigorate the fan base. The only way to make it even bigger is to add a new quarterback. And to me, that's going to be cjstroud. So again, no chance with offensive tackle here. And I think the first 2 picks of this draft are going to be quarterbacks. All right, let's go to the number 3 pick, and it is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm going to say, if there was one of the top 10 picks that I think is going to be traded, this would be the one. I've heard rumors about Tennessee coming up for this number 3 pick, Indianapolis coming up for the number 3 pick. Arizona could do a number of things, but Arizona is really coming to be at that place where with whatever they do, I'm pretty much assuming it's going to be the wrong decision. I feel they are run about as badly as any franchise in the NFL is right now. They need everything. You know, I don't think it's going to be an offensive lineman. I'm not worried about it. And also, Kyler Murray has made it very public. He wants Parisjohnson, which pretty much tells me they're not going to take Parisjohnson. And let's be honest, even though Johnson's a very good offensive tackle, I don't exactly think he's worthy of the number 3 overall pick. There are other players who are more talented. And with that pick, I am selecting Willanderson, the edge rusher to the Arizona Cardinals. He has been widely regarded as having as high of an upside as any player in this draft. I think it makes a lot of sense for Arizona. They just need a playmaker, a dynamic force who could change the feel of a team. Not just a good player, but a difference maker. And Willanderson can do that for them. All right, let's go to number 5. It's the Seattle Seahawks, and they are on the clock. Now, this is a very interesting pick. Now, as far as offensive line goes, there's been a little bit of controversy. I've heard from a few people here and there who think that it makes sense for the Seahawks to go offensive line. Now, for me, it makes no sense whatsoever because they just drafted Charles Cross. They just drafted Abraham Lucas last year alone, and they're both working out very well. The Seahawks need a lot of help on the interior part of the offensive line, and I've been hearing this thing from a few folks that Peter Skoronski might be taken by Seattle on the spot and shifted to guard. Now, I haven't heard it from any well-known draft prognosticators or draft predictors or anything like that, but I've heard it as a possibility. I got to be honest with you, I'm not worried about it. You know, just because Peter Skoronski has short arms, it does not mean he cannot play tackle. There are a lot of things more important than arm length, anticipation, footwork, size, all those different types of things. Let me read names of a couple of tackles for you who had shorter than average arm length, but still had a pretty good career in the pros. Taylor Lewan, Ryan Ramczyk, Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer, Joe Staley, Mitchell Schwartz, Isaiah Wynn, Deion Dawkins, Donald Penn. These guys all had relatively short arms, and they've been very, very successful. Skoronski has great footwork, and that is going to more than make up for it. I'm taking a little bit of an aside here to talk about Peter Skoronski. I'm actually going to quote Joe Thomas, one of the best offensive linemen of this generation. The combine arm length measurement is bullshit. Total waste of time. Until guys are poking each other with their middle finger, it has nothing to do with how to block someone. End quote. That's from a Hall of Famer. So I'm not worried about the arm length of Peter Skoronski. I think that Seattle is going to take a quarterback, and I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. I know they just signed Geno Smith, but you know what? I think it's a contract that they could get out of after a year or two. Geno had one great year. How long can you really count on him? It's not a guarantee he's going to do again what he did last season. And now you have Anthony Richardson who can be mentored for a year or two and then eventually step in when the time is right. So I've got 4 of the first 5 picks in this draft as a quarterback, and that's exactly what the Jets would want to see happen. A lot of cornerbacks, and there's another position we're going to get to in just one moment. Now it's the number 6 pick, and the Detroit Lions are on the clock. As far as the Detroit Lions go, I am going to give this one a no chance as well. So basically, I would be shocked if any of the first picks in this draft are an offensive tackle. You know, Detroit has Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. That's a pretty freaking good 1-2 punch, you know. I think there's a possibility they could go quarterback if one fell, but I see some distinct needs on that defense. Defensive line, cornerback. They just traded Jeff Aduka. Tight end also, but it's too early to take a tight end at this point. I am going to say they go with the cornerback with the most upside in this draft, and to me that's Devin Witherspoon from the University of Illinois. I think he's going to fit very well in a Detroit defense that needs to take another step up, and I think the Lions fans are going to be very happy with D. Witherspoon. Okay, that's number 6. Now we go on to number 7. It is the Las Vegas Raiders. They are on the clock. Now, the Raiders, I think, are that first team where it starts to become possible that they could be taking an offensive tackle, but they got a number of needs here. If not offensive line, you know, their tackles are Colton Miller and Jermaine Elaminor, whatever. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Pardon me, Jermaine, if I got that one wrong. But I think the Raiders are a little bit more of a flash team. They want to create a little bit more excitement. They really need a lot of help in the secondary, especially cornerback, and they got a lot of good ones to choose from. I think they take Christiangonzalez. I love his speed. I love his ball awareness. I think he can make a pretty good impact in that secondary, especially in a division where you're facing Herbert and Mahomes. I know Russell Wilson's kind of on the outside, but you're facing 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Got to beef up that defense. So to me, I know their offensive line needs help, but I think that defense needs to take a bigger step up. So I'm going with Christian Gonzalez to number 7 to Vegas. Number 8 belongs to the Atlanta Falcons, and they are on the clock. As far as the Falcons go with offensive line, I'm going to say no chance here. I think they're going to go defense as well. I see specific needs at the defensive line and at cornerback, and I don't think there's any way that Jalencarter drops any farther than number 8. I think Atlanta sprints to the podium to select the player with probably the highest upside of anyone in the whole draft. You know, there are definitely questions about him, but I think Atlanta's going to be willing to take the chance. So got Jalencarter to Atlanta at number 8. On to number 9, my former hometown Chicago Bears are on the clock. And this is a team that absolutely would concern me as a Jets fan that they're going to go offensive tackle. You know, it seems as though exactly what the Jets want, the Bears want also, and the Bears have better draft position. Right now, their tackles are Braxton Jones, who they just drafted, and Tevin Jenkins, who they have never really been able to find a home for. They've been moving him kind of around the offensive line. He's had injury issues. He's been kind of an enigma on this line. This isn't a season where I feel like they could really count on him. They could go defensive tackle as well as if they wanted. Now, to me, the player who makes the most sense here that I'm going to go with is Parisjohnson Jr. As far as an all-around offensive lineman, plug and play, I think the Bears are going to put him in there. I think that they're going to ship Braxton Jones over to right tackle, and Tevin Jenkins will be used at guard. Now, I've heard some rumors. This is interesting. I've heard Skoronski, I've heard that one. But Darnell Wright, I've been hearing possibilities that the Bears have a lot of interest in him, and they would plug him in at right tackle right away. I just can't envision a scenario where Darnell Wright is the first tackle taken in this draft, but I will say the first offensive lineman comes off the board at number 9, and it's Parisjohnson. On to number 10, the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock. With tackle with this team, I'm going to say no chance. I feel like the Eagles have a pretty good all-around team. You know, they lost a couple of free agents, but nobody of huge note in my mind, outside of Javon Hargrave, but they can plug and play some guys into his spot. You know, they have Jordan Mailata. I think they just signed him to a deal. They have Lane Johnson as well, who's one of the best offensive linemen in football. They have no real gaping holes, but you know what? I think after losing Miles Sanders at running back, I think Bijanrobinson makes a lot of sense. Can you imagine a running game with Jalen Hurts at quarterback and Bijanrobinson at halfback? That offensive line is going to be crazy to stop. So this, to me, is one of the most important things that could happen, is Bijanrobinson, the running back, going before the Jets pick. Because the Jets are not going to have any interest in a running back in the first round. This would be a huge step for them. Because as those old fringe positions go, other players are dropping down towards the Jets. So I've got Bijan going at 10. Number 11 is going to be the Tennessee Titans, and they are on the clock. I'm going to say that as far as them taking an offensive tackle, this one is going to be possible. I'm not going to say no chance, and I'm not even going to say likely. But here's why. I think Tennessee has a chance to trade up for a quarterback. I talked to you earlier. I think Tennessee could trade up with number 3 along with Arizona and take a quarterback. If they don't do that, then I do believe they're going to go with an offensive tackle in the spot. And I don't see another position that they would take ahead of that. And to me, the pick is Peter Skoronski. The Titans have had him in for visits. They love what they see. To me, Skoronski is going to be the guy. So that's 2 offensive tackles off the board. And we still have 3 more picks that have to be made before the Jets pick. All right, what's going to happen? Well, number 12, the Houston Texans have come back around. They are on the clock. So now that Houston has their quarterback in place, I think they're going to want to add a new toy for their new quarterback. And you know what? I was thinking wide receiver would make a lot of sense, but this is the one I've gone back and forth on. I think they're going to go with the defense here. With DeMeco Ryans, I think he wants to add a piece to that defensive line and beef it up a little bit. Houston still has a lot of picks coming up where they could take a wide receiver, but they have a chance to get an edge rusher here, and I say it's going to be Tyree Wilson making it all the way down to number 12. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to upgrade that defense, but I do expect the majority of the Texans draft to be focused on the offense. But they got a really good player here in Wilson. All right, number 13, it is now, as of today, the Green Bay Packers draft pick. They are on the clock. So when I look at the Packers, they have, I think, about a dozen picks now to work with. They have so many picks, including 2 in the second round in the early 40s. So I think that they could go pretty much best player available, and I see a team that needs help at tight end, on the defensive line, and in the secondary especially. Remember, they just drafted a couple of wide receivers last season in Dubs and Watson. I don't think wide receiver is a glaring need for this team. I don't think running back is. I think the offensive line is pretty solid, but there are some other positions that need help. So I'm starting with the defense with Green Bay, and I am going to project Lukasvanness, the edge rusher, to go over to the Packers and add some pass rushing, which I think they sorely need. A little bit of a crazy pick. That may be my riskiest pick here. But to me, I don't think there is a set team, a set position that the Packers need. There's several of them. I could see Joey Porter if they wanted to go cornerback, but I think they're going to go with the pass rush and go with Van Ness. All right, on to number 14. It is just, my all-time favorite team, the New England Patriots. They're on the clock. So I felt there was no chance Houston would take an offensive tackle. I feel no chance on Green Bay taking an offensive tackle. New England, to me, is one of those real swing teams where it's a little bit hard to project what they're going to do. I could see a 50-50 chance here that they go offensive line. If not that, I think it's going to be wide receiver. I've seen quarterback as well, but to me, this team is desperately in need of an elite wide receiver. All they have is Juju Smith-Schuster, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, who hasn't proven he could stay on the field. There isn't a go-to wide receiver, and when you have 2 quarterbacks as mediocre as theirs are, you need a go-to target. You can't even count on the tight ends, really. I mean, Hunter Henry hasn't done much. Jonnu Smith is gone. So to me, you have to add a real playmaker here. And jaxsonsmithnjigba is the player that I am projecting to New England with this pick. I've seen Devin Witherspoon mock to him. I don't think that he's getting out of the top 10. But if it's not jaxsonsmithnjigba, it's going to be this next player. And we are at number 15, and the New York Jets are on the clock. Let's talk about it. So at this point, to me, the Jets have to go offensive tackle. Even though they're very limited on their draft capital, they now only have 2 draft picks in the first 111 spots. To me, offensive tackle has to be solidified. You have to give Aaron Rodgers some protection. He's very good under pressure, but he doesn't have the speed that he used to have. He had some decent speed. Now he has very little. At this point, you have to solidify tackle. You don't know if Mekhi Becton's going to be here much longer. Dwayne Brown is all but a corpse at this point. Max Mitchell's he has some potential as a young right tackle, but he still has a lot to prove. You have to insert somebody who can play, and to me, it's Broderickjones from Georgia. I think Broderick makes it to 15, and I think the Jets scoop him up immediately, and they are high-fiving. I think there'll even be some chair spins by Joe Douglas. I think he'll be doing this a little bit. The wicker chair does not spin, however. But I think that's what's going to happen, and here's what I'm going to say about Broderick. 6'4", 310 pounds, only 2 sacks allowed in college in 19 starts at left tackle. He's not very seasoned, but he's got the size, the speed, the power, the thickness, the athleticism that you really want in a left tackle. He's an out-and-out bully. You're not going to go through him. You have to go around him. He earned an 84.1 pass blocking grade starting at left tackle for the Bulldogs. So I like that he has power, but he's athletic as well, and he's got a good mentality. He could pull block as well, which works very well in the zone blocking. Now, Parisjohnson, I will say, has a lot of experience zone blocking as opposed to gap blocking. I think if the Jets had their choice, they would go Parisjohnson. I just don't think he's making it to number 15. So I think Broderick is the pick. If that didn't work out, if those guys were gone, maybe the Jets would go Darnell Wright. I think it's possible. But I think they would look at trading down at that point. And if they do, I would go after a Kalijah Kancey at defensive tackle. So those are my thoughts as far as those picks go, and also Broderickjones. Now, as looking at the teams and what I'll be watching for as I watch this first round with the Virginia Jets fans at AJ Gators in Norfolk, Virginia on Thursday night, of these first 14 picks, I need 7 of them at least to be either quarterback, running back, and cornerback. Okay? Realistically, I expect 4 quarterbacks to go, 1 running back, and at least 2 cornerbacks, maybe even 3, but I need at least 2. I think there'll be at least 3 edge rushers taken as well in the top 14. And if that's the case, then there's a good chance that an offensive tackle will make it to the Jets now at 15. But I think at the most, if I had to guarantee one team taking a tackle, it's the Bears. If they don't go tackle, I'll be shocked. But of the other teams, it's Vegas, it's Tennessee, and it's New England. If only one of them takes a tackle, I'll be thrilled. I think it's realistically going to be 2. I think one of the big things, will Tennessee trade up for that quarterback? If they do, I will have every confidence the Jets are coming away with a starting offensive tackle for Aaron Rodgers. And again, realistically, I don't think that Peter Skoronski is going to be on the Jets. I think he goes to either Chicago or Tennessee. I projected Tennessee. And I think Parisjohnson just doesn't make it. I think New England is basically going to control the destiny of Broderickjones. If they don't take him, the Jets are absolutely going to take him. Well, those are my thoughts on the first round. I'm going to be recording another video on what I believe the Jets would do with their remaining now just 4 picks. And we're going to talk about that on my next video, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.